Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Anna, and I'm really happy to be part of this project because I come from a completely different background. I deal with technology as a subject, but I definitely never painted with robots. I was born in Moscow in '83, which was back then the Soviet Union, which is relevant to my project, so that's why I mention it. I studied fashion design, and then I became a street artist, and then my work really combines a lot of mediums. So I use digital artwork with physical. I combine installation, textiles, drawing, new media, murals, and I also work a lot in collaborative projects and participatory artworks. So really a lot of different subjects, and I think because of this collaborative practice, that was what I was drawn to this project, because I'm collaborating with robots. So it's a really cool opportunity for me. And also with the team of both teams of the universities. In my work, I often explore questions of identity and collective memory. Growing up as an immigrant after moving to Israel from the Soviet Union, I became really interested in how our perception of reality shifts depending on our social conditioning. And therefore, I examined various aspects of our social norms and power structures, often through the lens of specific case studies. So each project has its own research. I'm not going to show a lot of my previous work, just really briefly to kind of have some context. I create spatial installations. This one was called A Lying Sun, and it was a two-part exhibition with the sculptor Katarina Tudinsky, who's making these beautiful abstract shapes. And I'm in charge of all the printed stuff. That's mine. And so it was partly exhibited in Turm Gallery in Berlin, and the second part was in Jaffa in Israel. And I really dealt with both of these spaces in these exhibitions, and specifically the public space around the galleries. And so I 3D scanned the streets around both galleries and then created digital collages, because I wanted to examine how the things that we see in our everyday life become our memories and inner landscapes, and how our physical environment can be digested through digital means into a new liminal space. So this was the Turm Gallery. You can see here, actually, we took some photos outside the gallery and then put it inside. So there was also like some game of inside and outside situation. And this was in Jaffa, and there we created more like a more collaborative 3D installation that you could walk through and kind of experience, like you experience a city with like an abstract psychedelic version of a city. Yes. As I said, the question that drew me in the EACVA residency, what was the possible interactions between human and generative system and the public and creation of an artwork? And the question that I kind of decided to take it to is, in the area defined by AI, social media, and global resurgence of dark ideologies, how are digital tools shaping personal identities and distorting collective memories? And this is, of course, a very big question. And so I narrowed it down to something that is relevant to me and also has historical background. So right now it's a very broad topic. I decided we had already this experience with the misinformation in the past, and so my reference is the Soviet Union, and specifically stories of women. I also started from this perspective because of my family history. As I said, I was born in the Soviet Union, and this lady here is my great-great-grandmother, who was arrested at the time of Lenin in the Red Terror, and for being a revolutionist who wanted to teach the farmers how to read, and that was not acceptable. So she was sent to prison and then got sick and died there. And her husband was actually released because it's a ridiculous accusation, and later on was then accused again of a very random thing that he did not do, and was executed during the Great Terror. That's my interest in the subject. And my family was actually exiled to Uzbekistan, so my grandmother grew up in exile. And this amazing head, if you haven't been, it's in Spandau in Berlin. So this is an exhibition that shows all of the artworks that were removed from the public space in Berlin. And you have a lot of sculptures of men depicting, as giant dudes. And I think, the reason that I'm so focused on this is because, I think anybody who grew up in the Soviet Union or any Eastern country, GDR, is aware of the actual, consequences of this regime. But I think there's a lot of people in other places who name themselves liberals and humanists who still see Lenin as a leader of the people. And this is really, in contrast to him being a murderous dictator. And I was wondering, how does that happen? And I think that really has to do with the power of art, and public art, and pop culture. And, these giant sculptures, they really have power. Like, public art has a lot of power in shaping public opinion. And there I come to the question of if digital space becomes our public space, so how does new media art shaping public opinion? I think it's a really important question to ask as artists, like, what if I then treat new media as public art, what is the role of that in future propaganda or positive projects and so on? Here we see a man caressing gently Lenin being removed from the public space. And also it's really important, like this was not obviously removed from the public space, so it's so important what do we put in the public space, if it's digital or physical, has a lot of meaning. So the key questions for this project is, what is the role of new media in creating collective memory? Can AI and robotic paintings be used in automatic procedure to create propaganda? So I'm actually trying to achieve with the teams, well, not a fully automated procedure, but like some sort of pipeline that I could replicate to a series of works, and therefore examine, can like physical artworks be created in this automated procedure, or like fabricated kind of way. And yes, as you heard, it's very difficult. So I think this project has kind of relaxed my fears about our future a little bit, and that's in the sense of robotic painting at least. And how can we create public art that will represent diverse perspectives and not just giant dudes? So what do I actually do? I'm using this amazing publication of women experiences of repression in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe as my main reference. It has a wonderful collection of testimonies and stories of women, so oral history. And I'm taking these stories, like actual accounts of memories, and I'm using AI, generative AI models to create images for stories undocumented by photography. So I'm trying to bring it to visualize these stories, not told. Obviously, because women's stories are often underrepresented, especially in such a situation where the narratives is what is heroic, is often completely ignoring what kind of things women had to endure in these conditions. What does it mean to be in the gulag, pregnant, or with a period? It's all, and we don't discuss these much. And then I use robotic painting, which is what we're here for. To blur the lines between humans and digital creation. So I'm really interested in creating this automated procedure in the end. And I also have this book here because I'm so excited about it. If you want to look through, it's very nice. And also this amazing publication about Russian colonialism. It's very simple text, and if you never heard of what's the history, I suggest. It's very, it didn't start with Ukraine. So I use AI to create images, I said, and this experiment I started just for myself, for fun, and of course this is a very basic way of using AI, of just generating images, but still, when I describe scenes from my teenage years that I didn't have photos of, I was really surprised at how close they were to my memories. I was quite shocked. It was really fun to see, and of course, there's a lot to say about the psychology of the situation, but I still think it was a really good experiment, and therefore, that's also the method that I'm using for this project, is really just describing simply the situation that the women are talking about. So really where it is, what are they doing, very basic kind of description. And this is some examples of the images that I have so far. So I mean, yeah, it's a lot of text, so you can maybe look through it later. But I take text from the book, and then I create prompts. And this is, for instance, women who are returning home and find their house locked and all of their belongings confiscated. They were late, so they were not arrested. So something there about being late, it's sometimes not bad. Now, a woman coming home to find all of her house torn apart, her husband arrested, and the nanny reading books to the children in the middle of all of this. And that's the image that we really experimented with quite a lot until we got to the painting that is here. And this is women and girls trying to find their relatives in prisons because people were arrested without any notice and taken without any explanation or where they are. And to make it a little bit more complicated, as if it wasn't enough, and also to actually have some reference to my work, more than conceptually, but also visually, is the references to the robotic paintings are my drawings. So I'm trying to emulate, together with the teams, my handwriting in the robotic version of it. And in order to do that, I really had to look at my own paintings and understand what is it that I'm doing? Like, how can we translate it into code? So I tried to analyze it and understand what are the rules of what I'm doing, like my own rules in my head, and I came up with quite a bit. So there's like the background drawings that are often done in a zigzag kind of line, which is impossible for a robot at this stage to recreate. And then I often use some color in the background, which is like a surface or a segment. And then on top of that, there's the drawing, which is actually the image. And it's normally done in a one line. So I just work in like a one-liner, and that creates kind of a distortion. So although they are very figurative, they're still not like realistic. I don't try to get perfection. Therefore, actually, the images of AI, which are a bit distorted, are perfect for me because I don't care about that. So that's great. Yes, and then we're getting to the robot. So my first visit in Constance, I worked with Michael, and as you've heard, he works on surfaces or segments, and I thought that was really perfect for creating these background filling, and we were trying to find a way of dividing the image to surfaces that would kind of imitate my work. And I think we found like some balance between the detail and the abstraction. It's really working with parameters. And we tried a bunch of images because we wanted to have something that works with on all of them as a system, and I think we managed. So then we decide, which areas we leave empty and which we fill. And then we could test it. That was really exciting, test the brush paintings with a simulator. Yeah, I didn't even show it today. That was like the funnest part of the thing, because you can see it being painted before it's painted. And I think there you could already see quite a lot of things that you can play around with. And so it was really interesting because I didn't expect the different parameters of robotic drawing to lead to such long production time sometimes. So we really had to also play around with that because we tried some stuff and I was like, okay, this is going to be painted now for 2 weeks for a single drawing. I was okay. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense because I usually do that in 10 seconds, so let's figure out what is the middle. So we kind of played around with that until we were happy with something. And these are the first tests that we made. So the solution for these zigzaggy lines, which are impossible because it would imply that you need to tell the robot, okay, so make a zigzag, where from to where from? And if I wanted an organic form, but inside shape is basically, we would need 2 years for that, or a whole team. So the solution that we found is that we would just make the lines kind of randomly in random length, but pretty much the same, different. So we limit the length, and then we also give it like a bit of a tilt in different directions, so it creates this flickering kind of texture. And actually, there the And then we use 2 layers of color, and there the audio feedback comes to play, the visual feedback, because we tell it to fill it on different percentages, right? And then the robot decides when it's 80% and 20%, and this allows us to create this like interesting texture of different colors. Yes. Yeah, and so after that, I was trying to figure out which material to use for this project, because I print normally on different textiles or PVC or whatever, but this project I decided to go with linen, because it seems to come up a lot in historical research in the context of prison uniforms. This natural and versatile material is currently mostly associated with fine and soft textiles, but in the text it is described as itchy, rough, and as this material can be when undergoing minimal processing. So basically, Gulag uniforms were made of linen. This resonated with the theme of loss of femininity as a form of torture that repeated in the testimonies. So women back then really perceived themselves as delicate and gentle, and then they were suddenly forced to be rough and to survive. So that's why linen. And this very delicate linen, I think is just, it's really beautiful. Because it's going to be in the end a spatial installation, it's interesting to me also to work with transparency. That's why this one. Yeah, and the next work period, which led up to this painting, was remote, which was a bit insane with both Dania and Michael. What we tried to do is combine both of their systems, because I realized that for the outlines, actually I'm really quite happy with the outlines that are created from the segmentation that Michael's system is producing. I felt that it was already quite close to my drawings, but I wanted it to be a one-liner. And there, Daniel came in and tried to create and created this one-liners from the segmentation. And then we painted it. And the robot has decided that abstract is better because it just did that instead of that. And we think it's we think it might be because of the surface. As we said, the surface obviously changed how the brush moves, and so this was the unexpected result that we got, though I am also happy with the surprise, and maybe abstract is better. And so the next steps for this project is working on the line work, because I still feel that it's in development, so we still have a lot of work to reach like what I feel that is close to my drawing style, but then also finding a way of creating this installation and putting it together with the text and how many texts and which text, and so the practical part is actually still not resolved, but half a year is a long time. I think it will be good. So thanks. I mean, Michael and Daniel are here, so they're probably way better at answering technical questions. Because even though I kind of understand what happened, I also think they have a better understanding. But thanks.
Questions for our speaker?
So thanks, Jan, for a very interesting project. And I kind of want to stuck in something that you said about diverse perspective in the time of AI and social media. And I kind of find it interesting how, because I had those questions and you answered in your own presentation of how you actually try to bring diverse perspective in something that is automated by even inside our project, taking the lines from Danny and taking the filling from Michael. So you already try to kind of bring your own aesthetic decision despite automatization and the machine is kind of forcing you into the process. You don't really have hands-on on the work. But I was kind of wondering more from like the aesthetics that result in the work, because you talked a lot about the power that, let's let's say, the common aesthetics has on our understanding, and if you looked at street art, but then what we inherited, what we're getting today from the medium. I kind of wonder about like what epistemological aesthetic values that are coming out through the project now, if you feel that you're facing a new aesthetics by working with the robotic versus, because I know you have a long background working with the digital realm, but not necessarily with the robotic painting side. So I'm kind of interested to hear like what is your relation to the aesthetic that comes out of it and your ability to influence or be kind of restrained to it. So more about that and maybe how this is going as well and shaping through the communication with both Danny and Michael.
I think so far for me it's been kind of like a learning experience in the sense that I'm also trying to make sense of what is happening and how do I react to what the robot is producing, because it is very different from collaborating with artists that you can easily talk to because it is a deterministic process, and so you dictate what is happening, but actually you get a completely different surprise in the end. And of course, the aesthetics of it are not necessarily where I want them to be right now. So I think that's the main reason if I would see like the aesthetics that I imagine it to be, then maybe I would could say this is something that could take over. But I think I'm getting into this project with a lot of fear. I think that's the main kind of thing that drove me to join it, because it could we create propaganda like this? Like because of course we dismiss AI images that are digital. We completely hate them. We know exactly what those are. But painting is a painting. Like we react to it completely differently, as Rebecca's research has found. And I think that's why I wanted to see if this thing could potentially be super impactful. But I think I'm a bit less scared now, because so far, at least for me, I haven't reached that point where it's the aesthetic that I don't feel like the aesthetic is impactful enough in this process, at least. But so we have half a year, so yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I was wondering if you were trying with your art to tell stories that have been untold yet. So, and you're using the medium of generative AI, which creates this aesthetics, this common aesthetics, which is used, as you say, for convincing people a certain lifestyle and so on. But you generate images that speak of these untold stories. So would you say that this generative AI can also have the potential to, like archaeologically, get a grip of the cultural subconsciousness in the sense of this, what has been suppressed until now, these untold stories? Is this a good medium to uncover them, even though it stands for this very, very common superficial aesthetics?
I mean, in this case, I feel like it's really working. If I compare, not on all levels, I think if I try to create images that are more like in the public space or at home situations, it really gives really great results. If I try to generate images of the Gulag itself, that does not happen at all. So it is limited in that sense. And it just shows what we fed it so far. But yeah, that's actually one of the challenges in this project. Also, another one is, of course, to understand what images are possible to paint for me for this installation. So, because there's a lot of really horrible stories and very graphic things that I don't want to paint myself. So.